you for tuning in. This is James from Octopart. Welcome to the next installment of the webinar series as we're doing. Today we have two guests for you, both from CircuitBread, who is an Octopart partner. This is Engineering Your Success, Navigating Paths in Engineering and Technology. Basically, we're going to have two different discussion topics going today, both tying in together. And what we're looking at is how to break into the engineering sector, both as an engineer and as a non-engineering professional. So to start us off, we have Joshua Bishop. He is joined by Laren Dubkowski. And just before we get started, I just want to let you know, if you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to ask them in the chat. We will get to them at the end of the show. Josh, thanks for joining us. I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, thanks for that introduction, James. As James mentioned, my name is Josh Bishop. I work with CircuitBread and SwellFox, and we'll get into that in a moment. I'm over the engineering team. My background is in electrical engineering. And Laren and I, along with our partner April, started up SwellFox and CircuitBread several years ago. And April was smart enough not to join us today. She is our lead developer. She's over the development team that does all of our site development, and she is a little bit more camera shy than us, which again, I think is a good indicator of intelligence. Laren, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, I am a UX UI designer now for SwellFox, and before that, I worked in. I've been a UX UI designer for about 10 years, and before that, I worked in IT for a school district. And I just wanted to give a shout out to April can't be on the call with us, but neither can everyone on our team, and we just have an amazing team of designers, videographers, content creators, developers, and I'm gonna leave out a lot of other roles, but I just wanted to recognize everybody on our team for all the great work that they do.
So when we think about how you can be the most successful in an electrical engineering community, as an electrical engineer, we think the best way is to have a strong educational background, to have a foundation that was built in college, that you really understand the concepts. And nobody expects you to be perfect when you come out of college. Nobody expects you to know how to do everything, but just the ability to speak intelligently and to have problem solving skills and to have that foundation, even if there's a lot of fluff that you're still missing, knowing your basic circuits, your basic vocabulary even, is incredibly important in your first job. And that's kind of another interesting aspect of this, and one thing that Laren will be talking about more is when you get into that first job, you've been prepped to think, I'm going to be doing engineering, I'm going to be working with engineers. And while that's true, we find that most people are surprised at how much they work with non-engineers and the non-technical people. And so that's where it's fun to get Laren's perspective as a non-engineer on what it's like to work with those of us that are engineers.
Yeah, so before working with SwellFox, before working in the electronics industry, like I said, I worked in IT for a school district, and I'd say in that job role, I was a bit more on the technical side. You're used to people coming to you with questions that they don't know, that they need answers to. They're putting work orders in, you're helping them solve those problems, and it feels good to like be the technical person. But then moving into the electronics industry, I remember my first like few weeks on the job and like the projects we were working on, I'm just like, not only is it like the transitioning to a new, in my case, profession of being a designer, it was hard, but understanding that we're supposed to do this for these parts, these little black parts that you don't know anything about, is challenging. So, that's where I guess over the course of the last 10 years working in the industry, you pick up some tips and you kind of learn how to work in that environment. So I'd say that one thing that's really important is it's been great working with Josh because he's an electrical engineer, and in the environment we were in, if we were working on a project, we could just go to our engineers and say, listen, decode this for me, like put this in a way that I can understand. So it's important to have technical people on staff so that they can decode the whole environment. I think another part of it is learning to ask the right questions. Now in my role, I'm working with electrical engineers, I'm working with software developers. I'm neither of those two things. I don't understand. I mean, I understand a very, very surface level of that. But I think what I have learned to do is just to like not give up on it, and to not just kind of like to not try. Sorry, I try to understand as best as I can, and then to just ask like critical thinking type questions. And a lot of times what I found with that is that I can ask these questions, and it's just I'm offering a different perspective, and it kind of helps in a lot of situations. You know, another like really valuable thing about working in this industry, but it just in any job in general, is I had one of my favorite classes in college. I was a business major. Was human resources, and it wasn't so much for the topic. Like I don't want to be in human resources, but the professor was amazing, and he had worked. He had the opportunity to become an executive at Heinz, and you know, he told us at the time. He said, you know, by the time I was offered that, I was older. It would be a ton of hours. You're going to work 60 plus hours a week, and it just wasn't for me. But one of the things that he like drilled into us, we would do all of these tough kind of scenarios. We do labor negotiations where they set up these scenarios where neither side can win. Like it really comes down to like this compromise. And we talk about, you know, firing people and hiring people and all these things. And he would always say, you're going to work in a lot of difficult situations. You're going to work with a variety of people, and no matter what, it always comes down to treating people with dignity and respect. And he just like hammered that into my brain over, I think I had 2 semesters with him. Treat people with dignity and respect, try to understand them, try to speak their language, try to ask the right questions. So the other thing that I learned is that everybody has a specialty. And I think there's kind of this misconception that, you know, because somebody has a pile of degrees, or because they have a lot of years of experience, or I don't know, they're perceived as being really smart. I think that society maybe gives too much credit to that. Like, oh, this person's good at math. They're I don't know, a smarter person. And I think it's more that people have specialties, and all of those specialties are valuable, especially in a team environment. Like one person on their own doesn't create an iPhone and distribute it and market it and all those things. You need the specialties. So in a way, like it reminds me of playing a video game where either you're creating a character, or you're using a character that already exists in the game, and the characters have these attributes. And again, I think society tends to think like, oh, this technical person is just way smarter than I am. And I want people to think of it more in terms of like their different skill sets. Josh is way better at math than I am, like by far. But Josh is colorblind and probably wouldn't make the best designer, and he doesn't have like design skills. But it's just, so in this example that I have up on the screen, you know, we have 2 football players in this game, and one I think is a cornerback, and the other is a wide receiver, and they just have different skills. And you don't expect your quarterback to be a linebacker. It's just it isn't what you need. So it's really about people coming together, working together in a team. And I think in this relationship between technical and non-technical, it's about coming together for a compromise and meeting in the middle. And it's just as important for the non-technical person to try to understand, to try to ask critical questions, as it is for the technical person to not just go off for an hour technical specs, and to be able to simplify things for the non-technical person.
So I just had a question regarding skill sets and sort of overlap between the two. I guess as companies progress and grow, one of the key things that I know a lot of them struggle with is procurement. Obviously, that is something that ties into both sides of the engineering spectrum, so technical and non-technical. Is this something that people kind of innately learn in a company as a skill, like procurement and supply chain sort of navigation? Or is this something that people specialize in within organizations? And which side does it fall more on the technical side or the non-technical side?
Oh, that's an interesting question, because I feel like in procurement, it's a little bit difficult. And I imagine it is very dependent on the company itself. Because I imagine in some companies, the engineers say, I want this part, I want it in this quantity, I want it from this place, please go buy it for me. Whereas other companies, the engineer says, hey, I just need a resistor, it needs to be an 0603, I need 10,000 of them, go find it somewhere, I don't care the brand, I don't care. And if it's open-ended like that, the procurement manager is going to have to know what they're talking about. First of all, they're going to say 0603, what are you, they need to know what that even means to start the conversation. And then they need to be able to research and say, okay, he might not have a brand preference, but I care because we need a high quality resistor. And then on top of that, on more of the business side and the non-technical side, he has to think about logistics. Okay, this place, they're selling 10,000 of them, and that's great, you buy them, but then they're not available anymore. That was their going out of business sale or something like that. And so they don't provide any support. You can't go back and get 10,000 more. You have to go through somewhere else, and then you have to characterize everything again. And so that's a real interesting challenge, because they have to kind of play both sides, and how far they lean one side to the other, I think really depends on the environment of the company itself.
Great answer. Thanks. Laren, what about you from like a non-technical side? Is that something that you see at all in your day-to-day, or is that sort of more, as Josh was saying, on that technical side of things?
I would say more on the technical side of things. I think, yeah.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. I will also say, just really quick, when you were talking about not being able to speak the language, as an electrical engineer, I obviously speak the EE language, but when I'm talking to April, I will have a client that'll ask a question like about the website, about the development side, and April and her team, they're very, very technical. It's just a different technical. And I don't know how many times I've just been like, April, they said this, you say this, I don't understand what's going on. Can you please explain? So it's funny that even as the technical person, when I'm outside of my technical field, I'm in the exact same spot as you are, in terms of I have to respect them for what they know, and I have to hope that they're going to be patient with me as I'm like, what are you talking about here? Is that important? And I don't know how many times we've said, hey, could you make this tweak, expecting it to be really easy, and they're like, yeah, that'll take a couple of weeks. Like, oh my goodness. And then other times you expect this huge change and like, oh, that's just a checkbox that we go in the back end and do. So I was thinking as you were talking about that, like that's something I face all the time as well when dealing with the website development side of things, because that's not my field of expertise.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, on our team, we have developers, designers, engineers, videographers, content writers, and everybody has to come together and work together. When we set out to work on CircuitBread and a lot of the things we work on, we sit down and we say like, okay, how can we best utilize our strengths as a team to reach the next generation? And you know, it's interesting. Apple used to throw up this slide in their presentation that had the crossroads of technology and liberal arts, and I think it's this idea that anybody can, or any tech company can like create a device, but then ultimately that device has to be used by users, regular people. So how do you, Apple would always say that they're creating these devices, creating their products at the crossroads of technology and liberal arts. And I think that speaks to how we work on it as well, or how we view it. And a lot of it two that we want to focus on is like, how do we utilize these strengths and pull everything together to reach the next generation? You know, there's this idea that for some reason, even in my own head, there's this idea that millennials are going to enter the labor force. Like, they've started a little bit, but they're going to, like, the floodgates are going to open. And I found this stat the other day that 40% of the labor force are millennials and post-millennials. And the number kind of shocked me. And then I stepped back and I was thinking, I mean, I'm a 37-year-old millennial. It's not that I've just arrived in the workforce. I've been here for a while. And so I think a lot of companies look at it like, okay, we have our existing approaches, and those approaches have worked forever, and those approaches are going to continue working forever. And at the same time, the younger generations are expecting a different experience, especially in what we work a lot in the content creation industry. You know, now it's about YouTube and social media and everything like that more, and print media is not as common for younger generations. So, you know, we're excited that 70% of CircuitBread YouTube subscribers are between the ages of 18 and 34. It's people who are getting into the industry and people who are in the industry wanting to just kind of keep their skills sharp. And so we want to focus where.
Before you move on to that one, sorry.
Sure.
I just wanted to ask, with internet nativity, do you see it changing with millennials? Like, do you think it's different now, the way people find parts or want to purchase?
I'm trying to think. Like, I think so. I think people, that kind of goes into the next slide that that I'm going to talk to, actually, where, you know, we want to focus on where young engineers do research. And a friend of ours, Lectrix, did this study in 2022, and it's about focusing on where young engineers do research. And you know, obviously it's modern media, it's streaming video and stuff like that. But just looking at the graph there, e-learning courses in particular, video in particular, formats like what we're doing right now, social media, you know, ultimately at the end of the day, they might go to the distributor site or octopart.com to find the parts. But when they're doing their research, they're jumping on YouTube, they're jumping on some of these newer platforms to find out more about it. And I don't know if, Josh, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would almost say that those are kind of two separate parts. There's the research part in terms of trying to find the actual component that you want, and then there's the sourcing it to purchase it. And I think when I first started, the very first component I bought was online. And then the company started sending me these things, these books. They were humongous books of all the parts that were on sale. And I got those every month, every quarter, I don't remember. And I was sitting there in college thinking, what am I going to do with these? I used them as a footrest. I started piling them up under my desk and I just put my feet on them because I never used them. So, but that was how the older generation did it. And I'm sure there are still many engineers that's what they prefer. And I get that. I still like reading books that are hardcover, and even not hardcover, but tangible. I have my Kindle, but I'd still rather read a real book. But in terms of finding parts, I think I've definitely gone more with the younger generation, and I want it to be something simple. I want to be able to compare everything as quickly as possible. So in regards to Octopart, I put in a part number, and it not only shows me where I can get that part, but it shows me all the price breakdowns at the different levels and all that sort of stuff. So I like that sort of stuff, because then in the cases where I already know the part number, I can have something that makes the decision making the easiest for me, because all I have to do is put it in and it all pops up there in one page, and I don't have to go, okay, now let me look at this distributor. Let me look at this distributor. Oh, do they do direct sales? Things like that. So I definitely do think that procurement has changed in the last 10 to 20 years in terms of, and I don't want to say we've gotten lazy, but we've gotten to the point where we enjoy the easier aspects of it. It's like, why would I do it the hard way when I am being offered a free, easy way? It just doesn't make any sense to do it the hard way.
Right. And then what you were mentioning before about sort of like the initial start of starting the learning journey being through YouTube and that sort of thing. Would you say that millennials and Gen Z have taken a different approach to how they choose which companies they want to interact with, and actually look to these companies as sort of thought leaders, as opposed to just, hey, here's what you can provide me professionally, but they actually want to see them saying something, standing for something, believing in something, or at least putting through a message or a brand that they can connect with? Is that something you've seen a trend in recent years?
Absolutely, and I think a lot of it is, I think we'll touch on it a little bit later too, but I think a lot of it is being genuine. Like I think that's something that the younger generation values a lot, is like, don't trick me into buying something. Don't like slap me in the face with an ad. Like I have a question, or I have a concern, or I need to do some research. Like, give me the answer. So I think that's part of the challenge, or it's part of playing the game with content, is like creating genuine content that people are looking for, but it has to be funded as well. So it's striking this balance between how do you weave in promotion and things like that in a natural way.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, Octopart's launched the Pulse, which is our content center. And obviously we try to provide a wide range of content. We're going to have some sponsored stuff here and there, but we have a lot of stuff that we want to be genuine, that people can actually come to and learn and say, oh, that was actually really interesting. That's actually applicable to my career and my daily life. So, and we've seen a really positive response from that. So I mean, I kind of think it's a step in the right direction. People kind of want to hold brands accountable. It's no longer just how much ad spend can we throw at someone until they buy something. So
absolutely. Yeah. I think it's playing a longer game. I think traditionally a lot of thinking is like, we put up an ad and we see the results at the end of the month and that's it. And I think that, you know, I mean, we started the CircuitBread platform at zero everything, 0 page views, 0 subscribers, 0. And it's taken a long time. We've been at it 5 years, and we have, I think we're almost 76,000 subscribers on YouTube. But it's definitely like, it's not something that you start and say like, okay, at the end of this month, we're going to be like an influencer or something like that. Like we haven't, I think we still haven't arrived at that point yet either. It just takes a long time.
Yeah, and TikTok's like a whole other beast in that space, where people can blow up overnight, but it's really hard as a brand to actually market appropriately on that platform, given their standards and their best practices.
Yeah, and you just never know. Sometimes you'll hear clients say, hey, we'd like to make a viral movie or viral video, and it's like, wouldn't we all? I mean, sometimes a viral video is a lot of work, and sometimes it's just somebody that happened to take a video in their kitchen and it took them 10 seconds and then it went viral. Like, there's a lot that goes into it.
Right.
The other thing too that I'll say is that like a really valuable thing that we learned is that each platform is unique in how you build it. With the site, it's about, you know, SEO and creating regular content and your domain authority and things like that. And with YouTube, you know, what people see when they do a search result is they see a title and they see a thumbnail, and that's all of the information they have to go off. And then once they click on that, you have your click-through rate, and they start watching the video, and then it's what YouTube looks at is how long did they stay. So I mean, that's basically telling YouTube how good is the content. So that's what I would recommend for people too, like building these platforms, is like, look at each one, YouTube, Facebook, website, Instagram, and read books about it, watch YouTube videos about how each one kind of functions.
Right. Well, great. Next, I'll let you guys get back to it.
So right now, our goal with CircuitBread is basically to have the core educational courses. We do a lot of non-educational, but our goal is basically 75 to 80% of our content is purely educational, tutorial type lesson coursework. We want people to be able to come to CircuitBread, look at a video, and learn perhaps a basic introduction to control systems. And they go in and they learn about it and they have the concept, and we do a little bit of math to get them comfortable with the association between the concept and the math. And then they go to their class, and in the class, the professor says, okay, you guys watch that video that I recommended, if that would be the ideal case, let's talk about it now. And in that class, people would be able to ask questions, because that's one of the challenges with videos. You can't ask questions live. You can't say, hey, wait, what did you mean by that? And we try and make the videos as clear as possible, but obviously there's imperfections, and sometimes it'll click with one person and it won't with the other. But after they've watched this video, they can go in, talk to their professor, ask any questions, get things clarified, and then basically they can get homework and all those sorts of things to make sure that they truly understand the concept. And so that is basically our main goal, is that we can work hand in hand with professors, not competing with them, but hand in hand with professors to teach these concepts and these mathematical principles. And then they can go with your university and become even more familiarized with it, like more entrench that information in them by asking those questions that they need clarified, and then also by doing homework, because actually doing homework, as much as homework stinks, that really helps those concepts to sink in. So even though I've talked about tutorials, we actually have other things we've created to try and help people understand exactly what's going on. So with this visual that just popped up, you can see in the top left, that's a tutorial. We're trying to help people understand RGB LEDs. We try and do more practical things. The funny thing is, that's just, we were trying to show exactly what can happen with a decent voltage and a very low resistance. And this is not at all useful for engineers to actually learn something, but every once in a while we need a break. So the developers wanted to do some practices. So Ivan, who's our development team lead, works directly with April. He wanted to create this game. So Stephanie, our design team lead, she also created this game, and they created the sprites. Anyway, that's kind of a fun aside. But then we have our FAQs, which are more standalone topics that people might be interested. We have the tools that people can use to go along with what they need in order to learn. So tools to gain their tools to verify what they know. And I only want to mention the last thing on this because I really, really like it. There's the study guide. So Susie put together these study guides, and they're basically something that you can go in if you've taken the class and you just don't remember certain particulars of the class or don't remember certain equations. You can jump in, and she's got it all summarized very beautifully. I love the study guides. They're extremely well done, and I think they're incredibly helpful. But that kind of is a demonstration of the different types of content that we're trying to do to help electrical engineering students succeed. But we also like to do fun, higher level, not quite as technical of videos. And I think this Sanda Gaming video is a great example of it. And I think this is more of a passion project for Laren, so I'll let him talk to it.
Yeah, so this one of our favorite videos. You know, when I was working in IT, I would go into the server rooms and look at the servers, look at the switch gear, and you'd see all these little blinking lights on the switch gear, and you'd hear the hard drives whirring and stuff like that. And sometimes I just look at it and think, like, that blinking light is somebody streaming a video or saving a file or something like that. And I've worked in you know, I've always loved technology, but it's and can understand how some of the things work in kind of little segments, but how does it all come together into one experience? You know, how does our phone work? Like, all of these little components that that hundreds of companies working on components and raw materials. So this video that we created is goes through from a relatively high level how you go from literally sand and silicon to every step of that process. Ingots, cutting that into wafers, using lithography machines, how you start integrating with code to control all this stuff, and in total, the video goes from sand to how you can play a modern video game like Call of Duty on a console. And again, for me, it was just so cool to see it all come together and to see like, man, this is how it's actually possible. It's insane that it works, but it's amazing that it all comes together.
Yeah, that's a particularly fun one. I really enjoy that. And I like to look at these as more of an opportunity to, at the top of the funnel, get people that might be interested in electrical engineering, have a better understanding of why it's really cool to be an electrical engineer, and also show the variety of what you can do as an electrical engineer. You don't have to do circuit design. You don't have to do hardware design. You don't have to do semiconductor. You can do whatever you want within that and still make really, really cool things. Now, in the interest of time, I just want to touch on this briefly, but at the moment, CircuitBread is not very funded. We're in the process of monetizing it, but when we mentioned earlier about advertisements and trying to have a more genuine relationship with people, we never wanted CircuitBread to just have banner ads all over the place, and so we created what we call the Friends of CircuitBread program, which basically is the opportunity for us to weave a friend into the content itself in a way that makes sense. So for example, we have a resistor manufacturer that is supporting some of our Ohm's law type tutorials, those more basic tutorials. And in those tutorials, we mention how, or we use their parts as an example, and we have them in a way, have them integrated into the tutorial itself in a way that we hope makes more sense. Because frankly, our demographics, we've looked at it, 50% of our demographics do use ad blockers, so they don't see any ads anyway. And second, a lot of the ads that you see in places, they're really out of context. So you might be learning about Ohm's law, but then you have this tutorial talking about a $30,000 oscilloscope. And well, I mean, you're a student trying to learn the basics. You don't need a $30,000 oscilloscope. There's no real relationship. So we're trying to create some way of making it where it just is natural and it's beneficial, and we really do see the benefits of everybody working together. And so we want to create this sort of network effect in the way that we support ourselves up, because if we do this properly, everybody wins. Users win because they have less stress and they do better as electrical engineers. Universities win because they have a higher success rate with their electrical engineers. More people are passing, and they don't have to have as much stress because they're able to leverage the content that we've created. The friends that are supporting us, they're benefiting because they're showing their brand awareness, and they're showing like, hey, we're willing to support this, and they're getting that front of mind real estate with these upcoming engineers. And finally, it helps us because it funds us in this mission to create this content. So I do love win-win situations, and Sergey, engineer that I've been working with for almost 10 years now, and he still does fantastic work for us. He knows that if it's not at least a double win, then I'm not interested, but ideally it should be a triple or a quadruple win. And in this case, we think it can be a win-win-win-win situation for everybody. To be lifted up and helped together, and just overall make this a better space, which I think is frankly the core of the message in terms of success, both on the engineering side and the non-engineering side. And that is, if you are doing your work with the intent of not only helping yourself, but helping the company you're working for and the users that are utilizing the services of your company, then you're going to be successful, because everybody wins, and that's the best way to move forward.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. It was fascinating listening to that. But we do have some questions for you that have
No,
been sent in by the audience. So I'm going to start with this one here. It's a bit of a longer question, but I think it's very relevant. They said, I'm a student, and just out of curiosity, I wanted to check. I saw some job applications, and some of the electronics engineering positions have certifications that are needed to apply. But when I talk to the recruiters of these companies, I hear that they see it as more of a bonus rather than a necessity to apply. Is it pretty common in the industry to see something like this?
From my perspective, yes. And it goes back to what I said, when you're coming out of college, they don't expect you to know everything. And for many job applications and many job positions, they don't expect you to know everything in that case either. And the certifications are a bonus. It means, okay, you're specialized in this area. But one of the things about it being an electrical engineer, it's all about being able to learn and being able to grow in that area. And once you jump in, then you're going to be able to add more value. And of course, that's not always the case. You may be an expert in exactly that thing and what they need, but most of the time what I've seen is they say, hey, we want somebody that is interested in this, has a fairly good idea of what's going on, and then we expect them to have at least a couple of months to kind of figure out and really delve deep into that topic once they're there. So yeah, certificates, I haven't really seen a actual demand for those certificates to be needed to actually apply for the job.
Okay, great, thank you. The other one is, do you see millennials changing big enterprises' way of manufacturing? So are they shifting the company culture and method of manufacturing?
I think so, yeah. Laren, did you want to address that one, or?
I mean, I would say from a non-technical perspective, I think that yeah, every generation is going to come into the workforce and change the way that things happen. And it's kind of funny, like a lot of people kind of bemoan that fact, like, oh man, the next generation is coming and they're just terrible, and I don't know, things are different and things will never be the same. And it's like, yeah, things probably won't be the same, but that doesn't mean it's going to be worse. I think overall we improve over time. I think younger generations come along and say, why are we doing it this way? They like kind of push on management, push on their bosses and everything to kind of explain why things have been done that way. And a lot of times that leads to making the processes better and pushing things forward. So
Great. We only have one more question here, so just to anyone who's still attending, if you have any questions, now would be the time to ask. We can get to them before we wrap up. The last one is, do you see, the advancement of AI changing the way that anything's done in this sort of space? Like, what are the changes that you see coming from that development?
yeah, I mean, I think that's what everybody's talking about right now. And internally, we've sat down and have had several meetings about this, like this stuff that's coming really fast. How do we utilize it, both on the agency side, both on the CircuitBread side? I mean, man, it's crazy because I think it's in one sense it's going to change everything. But I would caution people, like we've been on calls with people where they say, oh yeah, like this really, now we can just bust out content like crazy, just paste in the prompts and it spits out a thing, and then we do a video. And Josh and I kind of just look at each other and we're like, I don't think that's like a good long-term, like it's a good way to put out a lot of content, but it's not a good way to build a good, genuine user base that cares about your stuff. So I think the way that we're viewing that internally for content creation, for the work that we do, is just, it's a very, very powerful tool. It's like everybody's gotten this super magic hammer that they can swing around. But it is just a tool, and ultimately I think I mean, we also have to do the work. It helps us check the work, it helps us make sure we don't get stuck, all those things. But yeah, I think use it as a tool and embrace it. Don't like don't push it off and say like, I'm never going to learn it. Like embrace it because it's here, and we'll all move forward, and it'll be great.
Yeah, it's one of those things, I think, where it's just like other things when people are resistant to the change. It's coming, and you can be as resistant as you want, but that's going to be a skill that you don't have that other people who are applying for jobs will have, and it's going to be detrimental to you overall ignoring it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's interesting too. Like we, I have this idea that when we get old is when we kind of draw a line in the sand and say like, oh, we're not gonna do that new technology thing. Like my mom, when Facebook started, she's like, I'd never put myself up on there. Now she's like, uses it more than anybody I know.
Yeah.
But I was over at my friend's house the other day, and I was talking about this exact thing actually, and I asked my friend, we were talking about this, and I said, what is the technology that our generation is going to be like? No, that's like too far. I'm not doing it, not getting involved. And for some people, that's AI. For some people, that's augmented reality or virtual reality. So I turned to their young kids in the room, and well, first I asked my friend who's my age. I said, would you get like a ocular implant that like has this heads-up display and gives you information? And all of us, like us older people, are like, yeah, I don't, that's like a little too far. I don't think I do that. And I turned to the like 12-year-old kid, and I was like, hey, Luke, would you get an ocular implant? And he's like, yeah. I was like, what would you use it for? He's like, I mean, everything, all sorts of. So,
Right.
so yeah, I mean, I think it's important to just embrace new technology as much as possible. Otherwise, it'll kind of like eat you, I think.
Yeah, I agree completely. I just have this one question, one comment, and then just I want to add one thing quickly to what you said, that I read an article a little while ago saying that at a certain age, people's brains actually stop wanting to adapt to new things. And it actually varies completely by person. And it relates to a lot of things in life. So if you think about it, everything ranging from like new technology through to trying new foods or even listening to new music. And some people, it starts as early as 25, according to the article. Some people, it's mid-30s, and then other people, it never happens to. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. And then the next question is, do you think programming goes hand in hand with electronics engineering? Is it expected in the industry, and with what programming languages?
That's crazy. I literally just wrote a paper about that yesterday or the day before.
There you go.
Yes, I do think it goes hand in hand. I think there are certain electrical engineers that won't need it. On the power engineering side, there might not be as much. However, I think that being able to even understand some of the basic languages it expands everything and can simplify whatever you're doing. So it depends if you want to go into embedded systems, and that's kind of the focus of a lot of us here at CircuitBread, a lot of the engineers. And so a lot of us do C. Sergey even does assembly. That's a little bit more esoteric for me. But those programming languages are very important. So I would recommend C for anybody planning on going into the embedded system. And that's not even a, oh, nice to have. That's basically a, you need to know this if you plan on succeeding in that world. If you want to go down a level and actually do the digital hardware design, you could do VHDL or Verilog. That there's debates between the two of them, and I don't really have the time or the inclination to really talk about which one of those two. But if you want to do digital hardware design and use FPGAs, stuff like that, you definitely should learn VHDL or Verilog. Now, that's actually one of those things where I think anybody could use C, and that's probably a good standard language to learn. But if you're not going to be learning about digital hardware design, you probably don't need to invest the time into VHDL or Verilog. So take that with a grain of salt. I would love to learn about it more, and Sergey's actually hoping to teach me more about that, but we've just been too busy for me to really get into that as deeply as I'd like to. MATLAB is used a lot in school, but that's actually one of those things that can go outside of school as well, and it uses its own proprietary language. So that's very, very useful to do anything in circuits or signal analysis or control systems or whatever. So that's something I'd recommend. Now, MATLAB is incredibly expensive. That's why we actually did some tutorials with Scilab, the freeware clone basically of MATLAB. And so if you're more of a student that wants to get into it or a hobbyist, definitely recommend the Scilab route because MATLAB is, it's pricey. And then Python is kind of useful just in general. That's a way to make some scripts that will automate your data, data gathering, stuff like that. It interfaces with different devices. So Python is a pretty simple, pretty straightforward language. And I think that's another one of those generic. It would be good for most everybody to have a good idea of how to use those. Again, not every electrical engineer will need to learn programming, but I feel that enough of them need to do it that it's a good idea for anybody to at least familiarize yourself with any of those languages. And there are a lot of other languages out there that would possibly be important, but I feel like those are more of the high level generic ones that you would find. And if you want to get more detail, I don't know when that blog is going to go live, but eventually the blog will go live and you can read what I wrote and had a little bit more forethought and preparation into putting that together.
Great. Lastly, just to finish up, I just wanted to read out the comment that was submitted. They said, I also just checked out CircuitBread and I'm already surprised by the amount of knowledge. Please keep it up. As a student, this is amazing. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. Thank you very much. That's
awesome.
Good to hear.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you both for presenting that. That was fascinating. I really appreciate the time that you took. And for everyone who tuned into the webinar, especially the people who are still here, thank you so much. We appreciate it. And there will be more in this series. We're going to have a bunch of different types of webinars coming in the future. So please stay tuned and make sure you subscribe to all of our future webinars. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you very much.